Hey everybody, what's going on? This is William Grazione, Metabolic Evolution. Today I wanted to discuss something that I've been utilizing a lot with my clients, and I feel like it should be utilized a lot more frequently. Um, Not saying that anybody doesn't necessarily know about this concept. However, it's possible that in times when you have a client that's getting relatively low on macros, and instead of continuing to push them deeper and deeper and deeper into the point of a caloric deficit and or adding more cardio, it may be a beneficial idea to, I guess in a sense, sit the player on the bench, give them a little break, and then come back and finish strong. So what I'm referring to are diet breaks. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how many of you who are watching this video who may be coaches utilize that diet break principle. However, I have found it over the last, probably about over the last year, to be an extremely useful tool. Um, I began, learning more about it and looking into it. I believe it was last year around May, no, maybe March, April of 2014. And it happened to come at a very good time because at the time I was working with some bodybuilding clients, and the preps weren't going as smoothly as maybe I had hoped, and so I began reading about alternate ways to help increase hormone levels and metabolism during dieting phases, and I came across the diet break concept. I believe I think it was possibly Alberto Nunez who had posted something about some research done on it, and I was kind of infatuated with it, and I kind of developed a sense of wanting to learn more about it, and over time, what I started to do is utilize it in my own clients. Now, obviously, these are, natural bodybuilding clients who were going after their pro cards or competing as professionals who, I needed to get extremely lean. And maybe, like I said, maybe they didn't have the best metabolism, so I couldn't take them from being, you know, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 35 pounds over stage weight to having strided glutes, without having these little breaks. The breaks, after I received feedback from my clients, it seemed like the breaks actually helped them psychologically as well, kind of allowed them to reboot themselves and get ready for the next haul of hard work with lower carbohydrates and higher cardio. So, what do you do during a diet break? Now, again, this is something that I think has to be utilized at the proper time. Um, I at the time I had worked with these guys for anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, and I noticed that their metabolisms weren't necessarily, or their bodies necessarily weren't really responding as I had hoped. So essentially, what we did was we reset their calories back to roughly what their maintenance level was, or what I thought their maintenance level was. Obviously, there's some adjustments that occur when you're in a caloric deficit. So the maintenance that you had at the peak of your off season is not the same maintenance that you're going to have after dieting for 12 to 14 weeks. So I found a median point where what I thought was the maintenance for them at that point in time, and I put them at that level of calories and reduced all cardio, took all cardio away, and ran that for anywhere from 5 to 7 days, depending on how the individual responded and how they were feeling. During that 5 to 7 day time span, I kept in very close contact with them. I wanted to make sure that they were seeing the benefits that I had assumed would be true of what would become of this. So, and they did. So we gave them like a 5 to 7 day diet break. Some of the research and things that I've been reading, um, you know, recommend like a 10 to 14 day. I haven't experimented with that yet, but I do know that the 5 to 7 day, even 4 to 7 days, somewhere in there, it works. And the clients, once they went back on the same macronutrients that I had them on that they had stalled on before, they continued to drop body fat and they got leaner. Some of them I had to give them numerous diet breaks because their preps, ran over 18 to 20 weeks long, and they competed in numerous shows. The end result was a very, very lean, glute striation bodybuilder, without necessarily having to kill them or put them into a extremely severe caloric restriction or just continue to add cardio like I know a lot of coaches do out there. Just trying to take a more educated approach. I believe it was who was this the other day? I read something and it really stuck with me. I believe it was Jeff Alberts, I believe, of 3D Muscle Journey. He had commented on somebody's post and said something to the likes of, you know, it was like it was a football terminology, and it was like you don't send your star receiver over the middle every single play to get blasted by that linebacker. You might send him over a few plays here and there, and then you sit him on the bench. You bring him back in the game. That stuck with me, and it made complete sense after looking back of what I've already done. After looking back at that really stuck with me. Like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots, looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And that was definitely one of the things that really stuck with me after having worked with these bodybuilders and seeing how these diet break strategies can really be beneficial. But I think there is a proper time to utilize them. I can't really say like a protocol that I would follow, just because I'm not a professor. But I do have some field knowledge as far as working with clients and seeing this happen. So while I can't provide scientific data, I can only provide what I think, why I think it works. So one of the reasons obviously is the massive influx of food obviously causes an increase in metabolic rate, okay? And then also helps stimulate the hormones that are associated with fat loss. So therefore, you're pretty much resetting your body during this break time, and then that thus allows you to be able to dive right back into the contest prep and continue to achieve greater conditioning over and over. You could probably see this, a very similar thing to this, during like a peak week per se. You typically start a peak week out very, very high calorie, very high carb, and then you gradually taper down. And typically what you'll notice with some people is that after you give them a few super high days, they start dropping rather rapidly. So it's a very similar process to that. And like I said, obviously helping to upregulate metabolic rate and hormones associated with fat loss. Now, when I would utilize this would probably be somewhere, when the macronutrients of a client are getting kind of low, and that they've already been dieting for a few months, and continuing to just keep pushing them may not be the best for them, physically or psychologically. So you throw a little diet break in there. Typically, I think a lot of us who follow a macronutrient based approach provide the client enough weeks to get lean for a contest. So you kind of want to leave a couple weeks in there just in case you hit those roadblocks, and just provide yourself more time in order to work with that client. So I think that would be a prime opportunity to implement a diet break. In that point where you just don't want to continue to push them, give them a break. It's kind of like it's like breaking your contest prep up into 2 or 3 pieces. A lot of people, especially natural bodybuilders, will diet for 20 plus weeks just straight on in. If you're used to that, then by all means. But there are points where you start to feel like death, and your macros are getting pretty low. That'd probably be a good time to take a break. Like I said, think about during the middle of prep, and you're on your grindstone. You're fucking busting your ass every day. You're doing cardio multiple times a week. Hit cardio, low intensity, whatever it is. Training balls to the wall. And then all of a sudden, hey, well, I don't have to do cardio for a week, and I can increase my calories for a week. I'm going to regain some of my strength that I lost during the cut. I'm going to fill back out. And then after we're done with that, then we can dive right back into the cut, adding the cardio back in, reducing the carbs to wherever they need to be in order for the client to achieve fat loss. So, like I said, I've utilized these diet break principles and had a lot of success with them. And I just think it's a smarter approach to a contest preparation. Not just taking the client's health into consideration first, and not just trying to kill them the entire prep. So, just something I wanted to put out there. Diet breaks are very useful. If you guys have any questions or anything regarding what I'm referring to, just go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and let's get some more videos out there. I'm going to try to get some more content out there, and thanks for watching. Later. Bye.